So ever since I started watching Promise Neverland, I always thought of it as a prison break anime, and I think most of it was uh, because of all the inmates and the thought of escaping the prison, or in this case, the the orphanage. So I think in a way it was like Prison Break, but not to that extent, and especially the end made it really uh, worth a comparison to Prison Break because they all escaped in the end. But now coming back to the review. Of the final episode of Promise Neverland. We have finally come to the end of Promise Neverland season 1. It was a long weekly wait and 20-minute episode that seemed to go by in the blink of an eye. We have held out for 12 weeks, resisting the temptation to read ahead. Now all our hard work has paid off, and it was a conclusion of the Great Escape. So the plot of this episode was Isabella sounds the alarm that the children have escaped. The demons are on high alert and cover the one exit, the bridge. Thankfully, this has been planned before, and instead of going through the obvious route, the children get ready to cross the gorge. A flashback reveals the extent of their planning, some of which we have actually seen sprinkled throughout previous episodes. Isabella realizes their plan and begins to track them down. It's a nail biting last few minutes. And one point of contention throughout the series has been how they will escape with the younger children. Ray had been against it from the start, but Emma wanted everyone to escape. Emma's final decision reflects a maturity that has been fostered within her. Rather than steadfastly holding on to her ideals, she takes the time to evaluate all possible options, even if those options are unbearably painful. Emma wasn't the only one who had significant character growth this episode. When a younger child, Jemima, is terrified of ziplining, Ray does not hesitate to step in and help her. I doubt if they had escaped earlier on, he would have been so gracious in his actions. And let's also talk about Phil. Phil is far by the real MVP of this episode. Emma and Ray have entrusted him with their hope for the future, something he accepts without any question. Imagine being 4 years old and seeing everyone escape and agreeing to being left behind. Like, what the hell? I'm glad the infantile amnesia talk in episode 9 wasn't a random throwaway. The revelation that Isabella is Ray's mother really shook this episode up. It's interesting to look back at her interactions with him and vice versa, but more on that. Uh, so I read up on the trivia of this episode, and for the final episode, Noi Tamina changed their introductory segment to Emma, Ray, and Norman standing together. Soon after the episode aired, it was announced that The Promised Neverland will be renewed for a second season, and the season will be released in 2020. And a short preview released hints that it may follow the children as they try to survive in the outside world. So, what an incredible final episode! To start off, let's talk with Phil. About Phil, I really appreciated how the creator managed to reflect a sense of paranoia back on the audience through his character. Just like Ray, Norman, and Emma, we have to be careful who we trust in the series. Phil is such an enigma, and he appears in the right place at the right time for far too often. It's impossible not to distrust him. The final arc in his character really solidifies the family bonds the children have with one another. He trusts in his older sibling so much he agrees to being left behind. But his last scene leaves the audience with a sense of unease. While Isabella has failed to capture the other children, she now has her eyes on Phil. As I mentioned before, the revelation that Isabella is Ray's mother was beyond shocking. It really brings a new dimension to their spy captain relationship. Looking back at previous episodes, I can see Isabella almost looking at Ray with pride when he talks to her. Especially when she knows he is just being sneaky and lying, she just can't help it. It also made Ray's attempt at self immolation in episode 11 even more of a statement. He was not only denying the demon their meal, but hitting Isabella where it hurts. But amongst all, it also showed a deeper conflict within Isabella. Her son is right in front of her, and she knows there's nothing she can do to save him. Besides her relationship with Ray, and what was really interesting in this episode was seeing her past in her own orphanage farm, and the bond she made with another child called Leslie, and her attempt at escape. Her relationship with Leslie seemed to parallel Emma's relationship with Norman. Child Isabella and Emma are both quite athletic and adventurous, but became close to their opposites, Leslie or Norman, who were a bit more reserved. Even the farewell between Isabella and Leslie was very similar to Emma and Norman's, especially with each boy's final smile. Ray may be her child, but Isabella really does see herself in Emma. With this in mind, I still believe deep in her heart she wants to escape. When she stood in front of Emma on the wall, she could have very easily leaped and grabbed her, but instead she let Emma go. Even more than that, she gathered their zip and ropes, giving them a better chance of escape. This is really genuinely heartfelt. I always knew they would pull it off, but at the same time, I'm so relieved that they managed to. The last few episodes of Promise Neverland has been so emotional, so it makes the final a wreck. Made me a wreck. With all now over, I feel there's a bit of a hole inside that desperately needs filling. Well, we have to wait till 2020 to get a season 2.